In the world of finance, there's this tool. It's so powerful, it can take a tiny investment and just explode it into a fortune. But it can also shatter a portfolio in the blink of an eye. It's called leverage. And today, we are going to break down exactly how it works, why it's so tempting, and the really serious risks that come with trying to use it.
So how does this actually work? I mean, how can a little bit of cash create these enormous returns, or, on the flip side, trigger such devastating losses? Well, that's the central question, isn't it? That's the core tension of leverage, and we're going to unpack all of it right now.
Okay, so here's the game plan. First up, we'll get a clear definition of what leverage even is. Then, we're going to look at two sides of the coin, using it when you think a stock's going to go up, and then using it when you think it's going to go down. We'll also dive into the pretty tricky world of options trading, and then we'll wrap it all up by looking at why this tool is, well, the ultimate double-edged sword.
All right, let's start with the absolute basics. When you hear that word leverage in a financial context, what are we really talking about? Well, at its core, it's all about one thing: multiplying your financial power. So the official definition is using borrowed money or other financial tools like options to try and boost your potential return. But let's make it simpler. Think of it like this. Leverage lets you control a really big asset, say a huge chunk of stock, by only putting up a small fraction of your own cash.
But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Using leverage is actually a double bet. First, you're betting that your investment actually goes the way you want it to. And second, you're betting that your return is going to be big enough to cover the cost of borrowing that money or using that instrument. You got to win both of those bets just to come out ahead.
Okay, so let's put this into practice. Let's say you're feeling bullish. You are just convinced the stock is about to shoot for the moon. What can you do about it? Let's compare a few ways you could play this. So, let's say you buy $50,000 worth of stock with your own money. The stock goes up 10%. You make 10%. Simple enough, right? But what if you use leverage? With buying on margin, maybe you only put up $25,000 of your own cash and borrow the other half. Now, that same 10% stock gain just became a 20% return on your money. You've literally doubled your profit. And then you have call options. This is where, for a much smaller upfront cost, you can control that same amount of stock, opening the door to returns that can make that 20% look tiny.
So that's the sunny, optimistic view. But what if you're a bear? What if you're looking at a stock and you're just sure it's overvalued and ready for a fall? How can you use leverage to actually profit from that?
Well, you've got two main ways to go about this. The first is called shorting the stock. You borrow shares, sell them right away, and then you really hope, that you can buy them back later at a lower price to return them, and you keep the difference. The second way is buying a put option, which gives you the right to sell shares at a pre-agreed price. Let's see how these two stack up.
Okay, so let's use a real example. Let's say the stock dropped, just like you predicted. Well, buying a put option for just $5 could have turned into a $15 profit. That is an incredible 300% gain on your initial cash.
But here's the really critical part. What if you were dead wrong? What if the stock went up? Well, with that put option, your maximum loss is completely capped. The absolute most you can ever lose is the $5 you paid for it. That's it. Your risk is 100% defined from the very beginning.
Now, what about shorting? In that same winning scenario, shorting the stock still delivered a fantastic 120% return. I mean, that's a great trade. But it's less than half of what the put option delivered. And this is where we see the terrifying side of leverage. If you're wrong when you're shorting and that stock goes up instead of down, what's your potential loss? It's infinite. There's no ceiling on how high a stock's price can go, which means there is no limit to how much money you can lose.
So let's just lay it all out. Side by side, you can see the put option took less cash up front, it delivered a way bigger gain, and this is the most important part, it had a completely capped maximum loss. The short position, while it worked out great in this scenario, left the trader exposed to that scary risk of infinite losses.
So it seems like a no-brainer, right? Options give you more leverage and less risk. Just use options. Well, of course, it is not that simple. That incredible power comes with its own set of very difficult challenges.
To actually make money with options, you basically have to solve 3 riddles, not just one. First, direction. You have to be right about which way the stock is going. Second, timing. A stock doesn't have an expiration date, but your option sure does. You have to be right that the stock makes its big move before your option just expires and becomes worthless. You're not just fighting the market, you're fighting the clock. And third, strike price. You have to be right that the stock moves enough to get past your chosen price. And here's the killer. You can get 2 out of 3 of these right, and you still lose all of your money.
You know, all this complexity leads to some really fascinating strategies. So, what if you're not sure about the direction a stock is going to go, but you're absolutely certain it's about to make a huge move? Maybe there's a big earnings report coming up. You just know there are going to be fireworks. You just don't know if they're going to be good fireworks or bad ones.
Well, this is where you can actually trade volatility itself. This is a strategy called a straddle. You buy both a call option and a put option at the same price. Now, if the stock just sits there and does nothing, you lose money. But you can see from that V-shape, if the stock makes a big move in either direction, up or down, you start making a profit. You're not betting on direction anymore. You're betting on a breakout.
Okay, as we start to wrap this up, it's so important to come back to the main idea. Leverage is just a tool. And like any powerful tool, it is completely 100% indifferent to what you hope or what you fear. All it does is amplify force.
That's it. Leverage is just a multiplier. It takes whatever the outcome of your investment is, and it just makes it bigger. It will turn your small wins into massive victories, absolutely, but it will just as happily turn a tiny mistake into a portfolio-destroying catastrophe.
And look, this isn't just some abstract risk. Being over-leveraged can cause losses so big that people just cannot sustain them. It can literally wipe out an entire investment portfolio. Using this tool the wrong way can have financial consequences that are basically impossible to come back from.
So let's just quickly recap the big points. First, leverage amplifies everything, good and bad. Second, options offer you massive leverage, but they force you to be right about the direction, the timing, and the size of the move. Third, some leverage tools like options can actually give you a more defined limited risk compared to something like shorting. And finally, the cost of being wrong when you're using leverage can be absolute. It can be 100% loss, or as we saw, even worse. You know, in the end, it really all comes down to this balance right here. Leverage dramatically jacks up your potential gain, yes, but it increases your potential loss right alongside it in lockstep. The two things are completely inseparable. You cannot have that massive upside without accepting the massive downside.
And that really leaves us with the final question, doesn't it? Leverage can give you the key to unlock returns that you could never even dream of with just your own cash. But before you turn that key, you have to ask yourself, are you truly prepared to pay the price if what's on the other side of that door isn't a prize, but a penalty?